I'm Alfonso Winker.
And I'm Trina Olson. And together, we're the co-founders of Team Dynamics.
And this is Behave.
Welcome back to Behave. Alfonso, let's talk about gender identity, gender expression, and why we talk about gender so darn much.
I would love to. I would love nothing more.
I know. I knew that because in Slack this morning you said it's gender has fully come into my body. Let's have the conversation.
Yeah, Levi was like, what about these three things? And I was like, what about gender?
Yeah, what about it?
What?
It's a strong negotiation over Slack.
So at the end of July, I went to...
The middle of the end? Is that the third week of a month?
Yeah, I think it was. I think let's call it the third week.
Okay. In the year of our Lord 2019. Yes. Okay, picture it. Sicily, go.
I went to a function called Bear Week.
Yeah.
Bear Week is hosted in Provincetown
Massachusetts.
Provincetown, Massachusetts. Mm-hmm. My friend Kevin likes to say we were on Cape.
I don't know
you're
what
like
that means.
You're either on Cape or you're off Cape.
Oh, in my mind you were wearing a cape.
No cape. Caftans.
Okay.
We are currently off Cape.
Okay,
that feels Studio G.
That feels true.
And I went to Bear Week, and if you don't know, bear is a classification of gay, and it typically will symbolize sort of like a larger or hairier style or physical affect. But there's a broad spectrum of bears, and I think if you're interested in sort of the phylum of gay men, sure, you can look that up on the internet carefully. But
and for folks who don't know you, do you self-identify as a bear?
I have dabbled in beardom.
Yeah.
I'm considering identifying as a bear. I'm 5'11". I'm like very hairy. Yeah. I have a bit of a tummy. Yeah. And that's sort of what you sort of think of when you think of a bear. And the whole reason I'm talking about this, not just to be like bear, is bears tend to, and this isn't true across the board, but when you think about like gay men who are bears, tend to sort of look on the surface more, quote, masculine. There's a lot of like mustaches and muscles and tattoos, and
it's like how they're read as strangers. It's like you could be a good lumberjack.
Yeah, maybe you have a motorcycle, or you chop wood.
Sure. You have a strong tool collection.
Yeah. And then you're walking down the street in P-Town and you see these like tall, big, hairy men, and they have like, one has gold lipstick on and the other one is like, I'm wearing a tutu today. And then they're like kissing each other on the lips to say hello. And it just was a revisit for me of all the different ways that gender is possible. Yeah. And I was hoping we could get into really specifically gender expression. Sure. Because I think all the ways we can do gender is so expansive, even within a singular identity. So I'm just going to say a quick word on the difference between gender identity and gender expression. If you come to one of our Bodies, Gender, Sexuality in the Workplace trainings, you'll get more on this, but I think it's important to clarify language.
Yeah, and can I say one thing as we lead into it? I think part of the reason we feel like it feels really timely to make sure that we're opening up this conversation about gender expression as we are talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion in the workplace is because I've been talking amongst our colleagues saying it is blowing my mind that we live in a borderline X-rated world when I think about like what's on TV at 8 p.m. Mm-hmm. But we are pretending that we are in G-rated workplaces. And this is not just about sexuality. It is that idea that folks are being more open and expressive with their genders than they feel like they are allowed to be at work. So in fact, we're actually creating sort of schisms of identity or places where you can and cannot fully express yourself. And to me, from the outside, it looks like that gap is getting bigger in terms of how people would prefer to fully express themselves in order to be their best, most expansive, most relational adults. And these teeny tiny tight boxes we are in U.S. workplaces.
And it's being coded as professionalism.
Oh, for sure.
And it's about like, well, who would take you seriously? And for a long time, you would use me as an example. And you'd say, so would you treat us the same if Alfonso came in with a full face of makeup? Yeah. People are like, no, we wouldn't. Like, oh, interesting. Why not?
Right. What if you saw in the summer, while I am wearing a dress that you would code as professional, that I do not, nor have I for the past 20 years, shaved my armpits?
Boom.
Boom. It's just real. I'm just saying true things out loud.
So gender is a big concept. We said in our previous episode, power is a big concept, and we're going to get into it a bunch. We're going to come back to gender as a general concept a bunch. Today, we're going to talk about gender expression, and it's different than gender identity. So gender identity is, how would I describe myself, my sense of self, and the words that I use to describe myself. So for me, my gender identity is as a man. I call myself a man. So Trina, for you, what's your gender identity?
I say woman. Sometimes I say girl.
Great. My gender expression, that is about the signals we choose to based on circumstance and context, whether or not we can. But for those of us that have enough privilege and access to resources and safer spaces, our gender expression is about the way we choose to show the world how we, on any given day, would like to represent masculinity or femininity on our bodies in multiple different ways. So my gender expression tends to be more masculine of center. And for example, right now, my toes are painted.
Right.
Because we got pedicures a couple weeks ago.
Ugh. Feels delicious every time, doesn't it?
Yes. How would you describe your gender expression?
It's a great question. I'm fighting with my gender expression right now for a couple reasons. Regional, age, dating, professional life. So when I think about what I am physically comfortable in, how I want to be taken seriously, how I want to be viewed as dateable, and how I've been programmed to gain power as a woman by being pretty, I'm in a bit of an existential crisis. That said, I wear pants sometimes. I wear dresses sometimes. I do and don't wear bras. I do and don't wear makeup. My hair is currently both short and long. So I don't know that I have words that feel great around my gender expression right now. What I know I like is I really want a wide berth. I want to be able to be in all of those different kinds of clothes and still be treated as though I am Trina and I am exactly as smart as I was before you saw my armpits.
Absolutely. And I love that you said you want this sort of expansive ability to represent yourself, because I think that in so many workplaces, there's a really tight window for how people get to show up. So it shouldn't be surprising to people that for weeks on end you were wearing pants and then all of a sudden you showed up in a dress. Right? Or it shouldn't be surprising to folks who, quite frankly, have never seen my toes. This is the first time at work I'm showing my toes. And they're like, what do you mean your nails are painted? I'm like, they've been painted the whole time.
Exactly. You just didn't know.
You didn't even know. So I think, and I don't want to make light of, because I think for some folks, for gender non-conforming folks, for trans folks, and for many of us, our true gender expression in the workplace can be dangerous. There can be physical, emotional, or economic consequences for fully expressing ourselves. So we want to bring some light to that conversation and talk about how we're practicing creating a bigger menu in the workplace around gender expression.
Well, and much like I think we talk about race really at the center of our practice, because race is a huge difference that makes a difference in how people are talked about and treated, I am always having a racialized gendered experience. Meaning, in my gender expression, what I'm wearing and how people are trying to make sense of that, I'm always a white person. I am also really light-skinned, so people do not read me as mixed or racially ambiguous. People really read me very consistently as a white person.
No question.
No, okay. It's like, just because you're responsible for making sure I apply sunscreen when we're out to lunch in the sun is like, I don't know that you need to be bringing that up right now. You have to really protect the skin of your like Norwegians.
It's like we share a bank account.
It's like,
cannot have you going down early.
So the reason we talk about this as an important part of the mix when we think about diversity, equity, and inclusion, all research, psychological, anthropological, and business research shows us that ourselves as individual contributors and our teams as a whole do better when we are embodied, meaning we feel healthy and well, we feel comfortable. We can have more creative ideas if I'm not worrying about standing in shoes that literally hurt. I'm not saying people don't get to wear uncomfortable shoes, but I would say, I am just one generation removed from when dress codes at work absolutely mandated heels, hose, and lipstick for women. And I think that's still the rule some places, or if it's not written, it's still the expectation. right? That when clients come or we're presenting at a conference, you better have gone to Banana Republic or Ann Taylor Loft, right? I expect a non-breathable fabric. I want to see, it's just like,
I want you tight. I want you cinched.
oh my gosh. I know that 9 to 5 is going to be remade. And I'm like, please, Lily Tomlin, bring back the blouse with the big poofy.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my God, it's exciting.
A dickie.
But so when I think about gender expression, right, when I moved into the field of philanthropy, I was one of the younger executive directors. Mm-hmm. And so we all are looking around for codes, and it's not written down anywhere. What is the uniform, right? Especially when you are in an ununiformed workplace. So I think about when I used to work in a direct service job that was legal. There was a lot of black. It was just like, we wear black. We're in New York. This is serious. This is apparently the color we wear. That wasn't written down anywhere, but I went and bought myself a lot of black so I'd get taken seriously. And when I went into philanthropy, I was noticing that all the women had what I refer to as a feminine signature accessory.
Yes.
There's like a strong brooch. There's like a lot of scarves, right? So there's something in addition to just like your regular clothes that is to say, look it, I really got ready for today. And I was struggling because I am trying to get taken seriously. And so I'm doing that dance every day to decide, what am I willing to do to fit in, even though this really makes me uncomfortable. And just sitting here in this means I'm thinking about something other than my badass idea.
Right. And how intense to know, and you made this comment to me, you were less than 3 months into your job.
Sure.
And you had observed this. So yeah. How intense to know, as someone who is pretty gender conforming yep. as a woman, yep. to know that even what you were bringing wasn't quite enough to be taken seriously. Right. And I think about, in a similar vein for me, in some of those professional spaces, like tucking your shirt in was right. like a really big deal, of like having on a sock that like peeped out of a ankle area. Mm-hmm. That's the area.
Yeah.
And having your shirt tucked in was this like, I take this seriously sort right. of thing. And I think in our workplaces, we're not taking seriously enough what you're saying about how limiting rigid gender expression expectations and culture are
yeah.
in really allowing folks to be their best creative selves in the workplace.
Before we founded Team Dynamics together, I remember I used to go to events that you were facilitating. And so sometimes I'd get there early if like the traffic was smooth. And I remember being in the room while you were getting ready and watching, sort of Fred Rogers style, what it was like for you to put the sport coat on.
Ugh.
Right? Like when enough of the company had arrived, I would, right? Because it was like sitting on the back of a chair and you were running around getting ready. And then all of a sudden it was like sport coat went on. And it was like, whoa, everybody's listening to In Charge, Alfonso.
Game like shirt in, cuffs down, jacket on. It was miserable. It was miserable.
Well, and I think as we talk about workplace culture of the future, this isn't about y'all, we're going to be forced to be changed. But like, let's be clear, the generations that are coming up after us and headed into work are just not going to stand for not being themselves.
Absolutely.
And that makes me so excited and so nervous.
Let's take a quick break and then talk about some tips for the workplace around gender expression.
Welcome back. We want to make sure that everybody has some actionable tips and tricks to walk away from. And as today we're talking about gender expression, I want to merge that with the work we are doing here at Team Dynamics about baked-in bias when we think about hiring. So one of the tips that I have for folks who are hiring managers or who are on boards of directors or search committees or just decision-making bodies around hiring is to actually have a conversation before you have your very first video conference call with candidates or before live candidates enter a room. So to actually discuss the fact that you are likely about to see people with lots of different hairstyles, and you are likely about to see people of wildly different heights. And somebody might be wearing a tie, somebody might be wearing a dress, somebody might be wearing a dress that you thought should wear a tie. And just talking through how it behooves us to be aware of all the conclusions we jump to when we see something, right? We have seen in the news and in the media all the ways that, for example, Black folks' hair has ever been talked about or treated as just being unprofessional, right? What it looks like for a woman to have her hair curled or not, what it looks like for who you read as a man to be wearing nail polish, what it like, people deciding these invisible criteria mean that based on how somebody looks and how they are expressing their gender, they are going to be better or worse for the job. I call bullshit on that. And I say, if we don't talk about it out loud, it could really creep into either the subconscious or conscious ways that we view and rank order candidates. So actually to get ready for lots of different kinds of looking people coming your way.
So I'll offer then a related reflection that is about how we are sometimes accidentally and sometimes on purpose incredibly rigid in some of our policies internally once folks are actually inside around gender expression. Some of us have dress codes or expectations, or sometimes the policy is dress for your day, or women, this is the expectation for how you should dress professionally, and men, this is how you should dress professionally. First, if your company's policy around dress code is organized by men and women or in any sort of binary way, just delete it. So start from there.
Yep.
Get rid of it.
Say people are expected to, workers here.
What? Covered from the knee up. Like just the second piece is I would invite you, whoever is in charge of managing and writing those policies, to have a reflection on what is it that you're trying to manage or control by having particular dress code assigned to different gender groups. What is it that you think might happen or could go wrong? And what belief systems is that assumption related to? And why do we think that we will be more effective at whatever it is we do at this company or organization if people are dressed in this particular way? So it's an invitation to get really specific and reflective. Dress for your day or dress professionally or dress modestly could mean really, really different things to really, really different people. And oftentimes that has been coded language to punish trans and gender nonconforming people, people of color, folks that are poor, working class, or low income coming into a new kind of job. And so what you're doing with a really rigid dress code policy around gender expression is actually saying white people who conform to a gender stereotype, who have enough money to shop at stores that everyone else here shops at, will do better here. Right.
And thanks for saying that, because I think sometimes, we recognize that some stuff that you and I think about all day might actually sound shocking or really new to some folks. And I just want to be really clear. Gender in and of itself is not political. It's been politicized. And gender expression has also always changed over time, right? So as we talk about being called team dynamics on purpose, because we need people prepared for dynamic change, gender expression and what it means is wildly different from one cultural community or regional community to the other. And whenever we're saying, let's just open up this conversation, we are not saying be done with gender as a construct. What we're saying is match your value of self-determination to how you make space for gender expression in your workplace. And when your staff feel like themselves, boy, they're going to be better for your company.
Absolutely. Well, Trina, thank you for allowing me to turn a story about my week at P-Town Bear Week into a conversation about dress code and gender expression in the workplace.
Absolutely.
We're curious, what are y'all thinking about when it comes to gender expression and gender identity in the workplace? We want to hear from you. You can tweet us at Team Dynamics LLC, email us team@teamdynamicsmn.com. If you want to work with us, check out teamdynamicsmn.com. And we have a fall series coming up. You can register on our website and you can learn from some of our expert trainers and facilitators all about things like gender identity and gender expression.
Behave is recorded in Studio G at the Glenn Nelson Center and is produced by Levi Weinhagen.
Make good choices. Go.
Okay, that's not how I like to begin. I don't think anything.
You may begin.